Hi, I'm Colonel Nilawat, and today with me here is Colonel Ramakrishna to discuss on the topic of the border tensions with China. So let's start this conversation with my first question. Why do you think China has a very aggressive posture towards India?
A simple question, but it has a lot of history behind it. The Chinese claim their civilization to be thousands of years old, and they have got their own concept of what China is in this world. For them, China is the center of this universe, their universe. They call it Tianxia, Tianxia, a heaven, of course, the Chinese heaven, in which they are the center, and all countries around are subservient to them, their vassals. And those who are subservient are allowed to exist, and beyond them are barbarians. Anybody beyond that border is definitely not their equal. In fact, Chinese do not consider anybody as their equal. And they have always been very clear about the need for expanding their borders and signification of the lands which they have occupied. This has been going on for centuries. You just have to look at the map of the earlier dynasties and the map of China today, and you will realize how China has been expanding its territories over centuries without stop, taking every possible opportunity to assimilate and take on any territory around it.
So many long discussions with China. India has been having a lot of meetings and a lot of talks with China. Still, the de escalation hasn't been made yet. So, may I know your views on this, please?
Chinese have a wonderful view about talks and actions. They consider negotiations to be a part of their overall strategic objectives. Their objectives are very clear. China should be the dominating factor in the world. China should be the dominating country in the world. And negotiations are only a part of the process. They are not an end to themselves. The way they approach negotiation is different from ours. Culturally, their negotiating approach is different from ours.
Right.
For them, negotiations are meant only to gain time and achieve what their objectives are. They are very clear on this subject. For us, negotiations are meant to solve problems. For them, it is meant to achieve their objectives. So they are very clear what their objectives are. So long as their objectives are not clear, or so long as their objectives are not to their favor, accepted by you, they will continue with negotiations and also simultaneously continue with any aggressive measures they want to take. They feel that these two are not necessarily connected. They can go in parallel, completely disconnected from each other. They'll keep on talking to you and keep on aggressing on your territory. That is their basic and fundamental way of projecting their power around the world.
Do you think that India and China will actually end up in a war?
You have posed two issues. One, continuing of talks, and other is possibility of a war. China will continue to talk to you as long as it wants as long as it thinks it is beneficial to them. For them, talks have no time bar or time limits. They will continue to talk. Their aim is to take your attention away from actually the way they are moving on the ground.
Correct.
Or in other areas.
Yes.
So far as war is concerned, now I don't think any country in the world today, after the bad and sad experience of World War I and II, I don't think any sane person would like a war. I don't think China would like a war as such. Here you go back to what Sun Tzu had said. You have to win battles without fighting. You have to gain your objectives without fighting. You have to ensure the enemy is so demoralized and confused that he accepts what you want and gives you on a platter without fighting. They have succeeded in this so far as India is concerned in the last 6 decades. They have occupied vast areas of our territory with minimal damage to themselves. The last fight we had, last time there was a major issue was in 1962 when India went in unprepared. Subsequently also, they have occupied vast tracts of our country without firing a shot. So long as they can manage to do that, they will continue to do that. They'll keep on threatening you. They'll keep on saying that you're no good, I am going to do this, I am going to do that. And their propaganda is wonderful. And mind you, they are not going in for a war, a direct attack or anything. They want to surround you from all possible sides. Trade, diplomacy, increase of troops on the maritime borders, OBOR, you talk of anything, their aim is always to surround you and ensure that you're so busy and uncomfortable that you have no time nor energy to devote to the main problems which they are creating. So they will create conditions or try to create conditions wherein you will voluntarily submit to their demands. Yes, small actions on the ground, they have had with the Russians also. They have had actions with the Russians. They have gone into Vietnam also a decade and a half back and got their noses bloodied. So they have been trying. They have tried it in Doklam also. So they will continue to do these small chutput things. But in the long run, they would like to avoid a full-scale war. But that does not mean that we should assume that there will be no war.
Exactly.
We cannot do that. We have to be prepared mentally, with our armies, with our trade, with diplomacy. We have to be able to counter all their moves. And not only counter their moves, we have to be 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of them. The recent occupation of the higher heights in the Leh area is an indication that at long last, India is waking up to this fact that we have to take initiatives where Chinese aggression is concerned.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you will always be reactive and you will always be the loser. This we have to keep in mind.
I've seen that China always have, kept a strategical approach. And I think India never had that kind of an approach. They always have tried to be more defensive. So don't you think that India should also now focus on being more strategical towards China, right?
Absolutely right. It's time that we Indians got out of our self-imposed restrictions. Nobody has imposed it on you.
Correct.
We have imposed on our restrictions. हम ये नहीं करेंगे, वो नहीं करेंगे, will not do this, will not do that. And it may irritate China, it will make him angry. हमें ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए. No, we have to do and take those steps which will ensure our security.
Right.
That should be the top priority for the government. And any preemptive measures we have to take, we should not hesitate. We should not hesitate to take up issues on the ground, in international forums, whether in discussions or in treaties or in terms of trade. I am glad that we have gone ahead and taken a small step forward, which is the banning of some of these Chinese apps.
Yes.
That is only a small step forward. People may say it's a very big thing. No, small step forward when we have a long way to go.
Now after listening to your answers and looking at the current scenario, it clearly seems that India and China will end up in a war. Now, what actually concerns me the most is which countries are going to support India, and the second question would be, what kind of support India actually requires from them.
China is a dominant power in Asia. It's the most dominant power. There's no doubt about it. And here we have to take into considerations the location, the geopolitical locations of those countries. Countries which are having borders with China or in and around South Asia, Southeast Asia, are highly vulnerable because of their small size and weak economic basis or weak military. They know that. They know that. So they are very hesitant to come out and say anything against China specifically. Moreover, for most of the countries, including Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, China is the major trading partner. They do not wish to upset this balance.
Right.
When you are saying a trading partner, they are also exporting to China,
Right.
importing from China. If they stop exporting to China or China does not take import from their countries, they will be economically affected.
Right.
So they have to keep that also in mind. So to assume or expect any major support from the smaller countries in Southeast Asia or South Asia, I don't think it is feasible. Yes, today USA, Japan, Taiwan, Australia definitely have major issues with Chinese on various accounts. It can be from history, from maritime trade, whatever it is. They would like to support you, but then we also must be receptive to support. Unfortunately or fortunately, we keep on saying we do not get into alliances. We do not go into alliances. This is not, from my point of view, a positive way or positive approach. If I want help from somebody, I should tell him, and he should know. I cannot keep on saying I will not have alliance with you and then expect him to support me tomorrow.
Right.
So our saying of we are neutral, we will not take sides, that I'm afraid that time for change in that policy has already come. And we should be able to say we will make alliances with whomsoever we want,
Right.
whenever we want, and in our own terms. As for support from USA or Australia or Japan, see, are a large country and we have our own economy. We have our own economy. We have a solid democracy. We have a fighting army, navy and air force, well equipped and motivated. We definitely do not need any foreign personnel, any soldiers, any sailors or airmen to come into our territory and help us in safeguarding our territory. We are capable of doing that. Our army is capable of managing our frontiers, and any hot issue of war which comes up, we can manage. But it is a fact that our industrial base is in poor shape, very poor shape. We have lost the last 50 or 60 years in that we have not developed an industrial base, especially a defense base for defense systems. So what happens is we will require replenishment of weapon systems, replenishment of arms and ammunition, maybe replenishment of even missiles, guided missiles or whatever they are. Now that has to come from some country. If USA has got it, well, you should be able to get it from them. If Israel has got it, we should be able to get it from them. Anybody, we should be able to approach. We have been getting a lot of armaments from Russia. We should be able to get it from them also.
Right.
We don't want their personnel, but we definitely will require replenishment of lost or used or damaged war systems and equipment. If they do this much, that is enough. We can manage the rest.
Due to this pandemic crisis, so many countries are affected because of this COVID virus, and many countries are furious towards China. So, what I wanted to know is that, in case if a war is declared between us and China, can we actually trust the support given by the other countries to India? I mean, shall we actually be only dependent on their support, or India should also focus on being independent?
Every country takes care of its own interests. National interests will come forefront and are the core objectives of every country. So no country is going to go against or take any action which will cause damage to their own interests. So within that limit, wo daire ke andar, we can expect support, provided we are in good terms with them. It is very necessary for us to develop a good, understanding, which luckily our present Prime Minister has been able to do. But then it has to be carried forward in a much more healthier way, in a greater fashion, and an open manner. Why should we be afraid to go into alliances? Here I will tell you this, to recount what happened in 1939 and 40. UK and England was in real bad shape. Churchill was the Prime Minister, and he was very far-sighted. He knew that England could not survive on its own, and support from USA was very, very necessary. He had no problem in communicating with the then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He established a rapport by writing letters, by going and meeting him, and by talking to him almost on a very regular basis. And that rapport came in very handy, in that when the Lend-Lease, FDR managed a Lend-Lease, even though America was out of the World War, it still was willing to help out England and the Allied powers with Lend-Lease agreement, wherein so much of naval, destroyers were given, or arms, ammunition, equipment, tanks, everything was given to UK. Churchill ensured that this particular alliance with US was always tight, never allowed it to slip. It is only when you can, and he used all possible methods. He said, you're speaking English, I am an Englishman, I mean, my mother is an American, I am only half English and half American, therefore you got to help me. I mean, he had a beautiful way with words, and he managed to convince the Americans that the sole hope for Europe and free countries was England. We have to ensure rapport of such high standards with those who will support us. It cannot be a overnight affair. Hanji hai and buy. We have not done that so far.
So basically, the damage which has been done in the last 50 to 60 years, it's because we never had focused on making healthy relations with other countries. If we would have focused on that, maybe we would have had a very aggressive defense, or I would say a very better defense as compared to what we have today towards China.
Yes, very true. But then we can't put the clock back. Exactly. What has happened. And we have been at the receiving end of unfriendly, actions by USA, by UK, so many people, by NATO. But now at least let us change the, the track should change. Patri badalna chahiye. We should do that. The question is, are we doing it? Are we doing it in sufficient, with sufficient force and at our disposal?
So Colonel Ramakrishna, my last question for you, and with all respect to our Indian Army, who do you think is going to win the war?
We are Indians. We want to remain as Indians, and we want to be a free country. So, do not ever even allow anybody to say who will win. We have to win. Exactly. There is just no choice. Right. If there is a war, we have to win. Right. And whatever is required for winning the war, we have to do. Right. There is no choice in this matter. Let China come. Today, you must remember, winning a war is not a matter of 10 people fighting and Goliath and that other guy who had a fight. It's not a 1-to-1 fight. Right. Today is much, much more than that. Right. It's a fight between armies, fight between navies, air force. It's fighting on the trade front, exactly. Fighting in United Nations, fighting for alliances. We have to ensure that China is weakened at every possible place and time. So far, we have not been doing that. So far, we have been very, very hesitant in taking positive, proactive measures. Right. Let us start it now. And there is something called deterrence. The only way you can stop an aggressor is to ensure that there is sufficient deterrent for him. He knows that whatever he wants, he cannot get away, the cost of getting what he wants will be much more than the cost of what he gets.
Right.
Punishment which will be accorded to him, will be much more than what he will ever gain. This must get into his mind. This must get into his mind. So we have to take proactive measures to ensure that he is psychologically at such a stage that he will think twice, 3 times, 100 times before he takes half a step forward. Because he knows that he cannot get away with even half a step forward. We have started doing that in a very small scale now. But then we have to take many more major steps, which we haven't done so far. There is just no question of any country fighting with India and winning a war.
Right.
Not acceptable at all. Don't even think about it.
Well, thank you, Colonel Ramakrishna, for giving us your
Thank
valuable
you.
time.
Thank you.
No, I'm really quite impressed by the answers that you've given me because, since this issue has been happening for a couple of months, a lot of confusions, a lot of questions were arising. And that's why I just thought, okay, this would be the best way to, park the questions and have the best answers out of it. So I'm quite now clear about the situation here. What was the problem? What are the challenges, and how India can actually, plan things in future to make sure that they're secure and absolutely safe.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.